All right, click the links to join the channel here or on subscribe. Start check out the Odyssey and Rumble. This is a challenge to get through without just saying a bunch of hot words about all these people who are pulling the strings, making decisions on the things that you enjoy. You know, they're like the Daleks, those little plastic robots with the toilet plungers on them. They seek out human pleasure. Anything you enjoy, we must destroy. So Indiana Jones is depressed. Okay, great. That's just fantastic. So how's the audience supposed to feel about this? I don't think Hollywood understands the concept of the indie character or what the audience wants, especially nowadays. They want a little bit of escapism, and they're looking towards these movies for that escapism. And you go, oh, it's just more of the same, more lecturing from these far leftist idiots who got us into this situation. So, like a naive little fool, I had hopes for Indiana Jones 5, and then the more I thought about it and I read about it, I realized I was abandoned hope, all you who enter here. The Hollywood idiots really will take something that's well established and just destroy it for the sake of destroying something. Subverting expectations is such a stupid phrase because we're expecting a good film that honors the original story, not cultural Marxist propaganda. And it's like they always say, diverse is our strengths, but they never provide evidence. It's just Frankfurt School programming. So $300 million into this movie later, due to the reshoots, plus a lot in advertisements, and the ads I have seen lately have been for Barbie. I don't even know when that's coming out, but I suspect that won't do too well. And Indy, and usually that's a bad sign. The more ads I see seem to be the ads I see ads for are for crappy movies. Like the last big push I saw was for that, I want to say Wakanda, but it's like that female Wakanda movie or whatever it's called, The Woman King, right? Which did not do well. So how exactly is Indiana Jones depressed? He knows that God is real. This is kind of a flaw in the Indy series that someone pointed out in the Bounding article comment section about the lack of his discussing, like he had a connection to the spiritual world, but it didn't affect him on a personal level. That's kind of a glaring misstep in the movie. And really, you don't want to overanalyze these movies too much. So perhaps you're familiar with, hey, to be fair, one of the best types of movies of its kind was Raiders of the Lost Ark. That was a very well filmed movie, even if a lot of some of it was a little cartoony, I get that, but like some of the camera shots and the settings were just done so well. Like the temples in the background, and it's like the sunset or sunrise on the desert. Some of those scenes will just stay with you. The way the cameraman or the director framed the shots were just fantastic. But Raiders of the Lost Ark, well, it's the Lost Ark, right? The Ark of the Covenant. It's a connection to the supernatural. And the Chalice of Christ was in movie 3. So he had two movies that touched on the divine. So in the story universe, at least, Indy had his experience with the divine. He would have to be a Christian after those. Logically, it would be insane if he saw the evidence firsthand and then rejected Christ. That doesn't make sense, and that's just kind of a missing spot of the movies. To not, and the thing is, they should have subtly included it somewhere in the storyline. Like he could have had a cross around his neck, or he could have been seen leaving a small little chapel or something, and Marcus would be surprised that I didn't know you were still in, something. It's like, and he would have some nod to the fact that, well, yeah, he's like, Marcus, we just returned the Ark of the Covenant. How could you not be religious after that? It's like something like you'd have to not be Christian after meeting the angels of God would be nuts. And I'm not saying this is some kind of hardcore religious. I'm saying like in the movie universe, you established this thing and then you didn't have him follow up on it. That seems to be a glaring inconsistency. It kind of makes the whole Indiana universe look silly. They should have included something about that. I mean, it's like atheists in a superhero universe that are full of small g and large G gods. It doesn't make sense. You say you don't believe in the person who's standing right next to you, or you literally went on an adventure to stop one evil god from fighting Anyway, so in Mangold's universe, Indy is depressed and old. I could not have imagined an indie movie bombing, but with reshoots and advertising, they're already deep into the hole for this to about $500 million. And it's not with his wife and kid from the fourth movie. Shia LaBeouf is still around. I'm not saying like people love him or hate him, but you established him in the fourth movie. you'd be better off continuing the storyline and having him carry out the show. But no, they needed a vagina-having person, also known as a woman. People may not love Shia LaBeouf, but they already established him in the earlier film, and so there is some, you grow attached to characters even though you initially didn't like them. Killing him off that's a sign of weakness for the series, because it's not like 5 movies ago. It was literally the preceding movie, and then the next director has to oh well, he's gone now because we need you to get rid of him. Like, the guy's still around. Just put him in the movie. Thing is, we don't. It's like they did that with Matrix Part 3 or 4 or something. 4, I guess. Where who was it? Who was the black guy in the movie? Morpheus or something. They didn't put him in the movie. It's like, the guy's still around. Yeah, I know he's fat now. He's a grandfather. It's like, okay, well, that's how you put him in the movie. He's just a fat old grandfather who thinks he's living normal life, taking care of his grandkids. He has no idea that this whole Matrix thing happened. It's like, the actor's still alive. He's probably in his 60s. He's still around. And they go, oh, they never called me. The Wachowski, I think. No, there's two. Something about Mary. I think they have similar last names. Anyway, whoever made the Matrix, like, that guy was still around. And you just decided to swap him for somebody younger? That doesn't make sense. It feels personal. It feels personal when you're getting rid of Morpheus, whoever the hell that guy actor. And I just saw him. What was he in? Was he in Ant-Man? I just saw that last night. He was in something. That's why he crossed my mind. Great actor, very very good in Morpheus as Matrix. Anyway, we don't mind. What happened in that movie? Oh, it bombed. Okay, well, I mean, you could at least give the guy a paycheck out of it. So we don't mind seeing an old Indiana Jones, but we don't want to see him battle Neo-Germans in 1960s America. Because in Mangold's mind, any European person is Hugo Boss. I mean, that's how subtle Hollywood is if you're paying attention. If you're a nationalist, then you're a Hugo Boss, at least in their world. It's kind of hard to explain on YouTube because it's a nuanced issue, and the algorithm it's not a human. It just gets triggered on hot words and word associations and how close they are together and that kind of thing. I mean, it's very clever because, like, if you make the videos, you could write an algorithm because the way of the video world. But it's what was a consequence of that algorithm. Everything on YouTube is safe and boring because, if you're on YouTube and you're making 6 figures or 5 or 6 figures, it's like it's a decent chunk of change for a lot of these. Not this kind of channel, but like a bigger channel, it's a decent chunk of change. And they're like, oh, we're not going to risk getting a strike and getting a week off YouTube and then having that strike on the record for 90 days. It could be a loss of thousands of dollars to them, and it's just not worth it because YouTube is not it's not YouTube anymore. It's not now I understand why those channels were always complaining about YouTube in the early days. It's like because after Google took over, it's like, oh, thank God for Rumble and Odyssey. Or when Twitter, please Twitter do a video live streaming thing on Twitter. Like, just replace YouTube with a Twitter X version. It would just blow the doors off YouTube. People would never look back. So as a consequence, nobody wants to upset the puppet masters with a little bit of truth. Hashtag always trust the government and media. Go get them. Go get whatever they recommend. Go get them. I didn't follow their recommendations, and I got to say I'm pretty glad I didn't because I can go up a flight of stairs without worrying. Or I can give an interview. I give football or basketball interview. It's like, so what happened, Mr. Athlete? You're 24. You're in peak. What happened? I better not talk about it. I wish I could edit these videos. I'd edit that whole 30 seconds out. Anyway, so ignore that. So their constant use of the blonde nationalist man bad trope is telling you volumes. If you choose to read in between the lines, what they fear is what probably something we should very carefully study. And really, who am I kidding? Even if I had like a supercomputer, it's like, I don't know how hard it is to go back and clip little things out of the video. Maybe it's not that hard. One day. I am building up a fund on Subscribestar thanks to LG, Vegan, Ireland, and everyone else over there. The thing is, we really don't want to see them go time traveling to fight them again. The whole World War II thing as a storyline, that is way played out. That is the most overused storyline. Everyone seems to be tired of it except for Hollywood or the comic book universe. They're constantly bringing it back, and they think they're virtue signaling. And if anything, nowadays, I don't even know who's rooting for whom anymore because their narrative is so warped and twisted. Everything is upside down. Who do they consider the bad guys? Because it seems like they just hate all European people, which would make them the bad guys. Because, hey, guys, we're the good guys. We're the best of guys. So will this be the first indie to lose money? Probably not. But I didn't think Star Wars would lose money either. And then you had Solo, which was the first Star Wars bomb. Most people who go see it are not even going to go read a single review about it. They're just going to go see it on a Saturday night. Then after they paid the $15, realize that it sucked donkey balls. And then word of mouth will catch up to it, and it'll underperform. I think the same thing's going to happen with Ant-Man. Yeah, I don't think either one's going to bomb. It's just going to underperform. So old Indiana Jones, he's 80, is fine. Have him walking around some of the ancient ruins in Greece. He discovers the tunnel to Atlantis. He finds the lost undersea world. He's 80, so walking around solving puzzles is perfect for him. Or being, the North Pole, the South Pole, where is it, where Jules Verne or something makes the journey to the center of the earth. There's a lot of those kind of Arthur Conan Doyle, H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, Henry Rider Haggard storylines that you could just borrow from. The Lost World, Lost Civilizations, ancient alien type of stuff, the Nazca Lines, whatever. There's a ton of stuff to do, but not girl power in the 60s. People hate the 60s. Being in America in the 60s doesn't make sense. That's a huge turn. There's an image of him running around the 60s. It doesn't look like Indy, because Indy's not set in the 60s. It's set in the 30s, the 40s. Because in the 60s, that's when all that cultural Marxist propaganda really took off. I don't want to see any film set in America. It's too depressing a setting, because even in the past, America was going to turn into this present Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm sure go back in time to those 60s hippies, and you showed them modern day America, and you say, hey, 60s hippies, would you go back to the patriarchy of the 50s? These are the consequences of those decisions. And it wasn't the 60s hippies who were pulling the strings. It was the Bolsheviks even back then. And, the perfect storyline for the 60s, instead of like doing time traveling, going after the Hugo Boss, would be going after the Bolsheviks. I mean, the Rosenberg spy scandal, I think, was within the 60s. There's like several examples of that kind of the Bolsheviks and the space race. That would have been the target to go after, but they're going after the time traveling Hugo Boss. They're time traveling back to Roman days, to just go after blonde man bad, because they hate European people so much, instead of dealing with the very real present threat in the 60s of the Bolsheviks and the space race and communism. They're stepping over that huge real issue to go after something that is just a straw man. It's just tilting at windmills. The time traveling Germans. That's insane. Especially when you put it in context, it's like, yeah, the communists were the real danger the whole time. You look at this present Sodom and Gomorrah you have before you. Anyway, so I definitely prefer the istophobic, anachronistic Indiana Jones much more so than this present Sodom version. Well, you'll just have to watch it and see. Well, yes and no. Watch it in the theaters? No. Wait until you can jig the mainsail and set your compass? Aye. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks to everyone over at Subscribestar, and I will see you guys. I got to make sure I got to that 10-minute mark. I'll see you guys all next episode.